Hey there, Pastor John here. It's about 1:45 on Monday, and I just want to spend a couple minutes with whoever wants to watch this, kind of recapping the sermon from last Sunday, yesterday. And we're going through a sermon series for Advent, the time of expectation before Christmas. It's a season of preparation, contemplation. Get ready for one of the big holidays of the year, the two high holy days, kind of, if you are okay with that terminology, that the high holy days would be Christmas, which celebrates the incarnation of God in Jesus Christ, and Easter, which celebrates the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, and it's kind of the final seal of God's power to do all that he promised, like Paul said, if Christ has not been raised, then our faith is in vain. But so for Advent, here's what we're doing. We are taking the 4 Sundays of Advent to go through the 4 Gospels, and we're looking at the nativity of Jesus according to each Gospel. And so in Matthew, we looked at that, and we saw that Matthew starts out with a genealogy, and he tells Joseph's story. And Matthew is writing primarily to Jewish audiences. He's a Jewish tax collector, a follower of Christ. And so he's kind of thinking like that and trying to communicate to those people. So he mentions the male line from Abraham through King David all the way down to Jesus. And then he tells the story of Joseph when Joseph discovered Mary was pregnant. He was going to divorce her. And the angel said, don't do that. Anyway, that's a whole nother sermon. So then Mark is, he's like a teenager. He's the kind of guy who's everything very, very quick. Immediately. He uses the word immediately like 10 times in the first 40 verses. And that was December 4th. And then yesterday, December 11th, we looked at the Nativity according to Luke. And that's kind of the classic one. That's the one that we read, most churches read on New Year's Eve. It's about the shepherds and the angels and all that stuff. And what we keyed in on was a little passage. If you have to read the first 2 chapters of Luke to get the whole thing where we went. And in the two chapters of Luke, we have an angel, Gabriel, appearing to 2 different people to tell them of 2 different miraculous pregnancies. Zechariah is a priest, and it's his turn to go do his priestly work in the temple. And he's in there doing his work, and an angel appears to him, and he says, you're going to have a son, and he's going to be the guy to prepare the way for the Messiah. And it turns out, though, that Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth are very old. And, they know about menopause as well as anybody. They know when you're past childbearing years, it's just too late. She's not going to have kids. And, well, that's okay. It's not what you want, but it's okay. And so the angel appears to this elderly man and says, your wife's going to have a baby. And he says, how can I know that's going to be true? That's basically what he says. How do I know what you're saying is true? And the angel says, how's this for a sign? Because you questioned it, you're not going to speak another word until John is born. And from that time on, Zechariah couldn't speak. The other thing, then the other appearance of an angel we looked at was when Gabriel appeared to Mary. And he said, and she appeared to Mary and said, you're going to conceive and bear a son. And Mary said, how's this going to be? Because I don't know a man, meaning she's a virgin. And the angel says, don't worry, what's conceived of you will be of God, because the Holy Spirit will overshadow you and bring about this pregnancy. And so what we have is Zechariah and Mary both questioning the word of the angel, but for some reason, and that's the important thing from the message yesterday, the reason that the important thing to notice is the different responses of the angel to Zechariah saying, how can this be? And Mary saying, how can this be? They ask basically the same question, but they have a completely different motivation behind the question. And, I don't know if you remember when you're kids, but sometimes you want to ask your parents something. You kind of think about how to approach it right. You want to get the right words. Don't say that to Dad. Oh, no, don't say that to mom. That kind of thing. You think it through, right? So if we look at what Zechariah said and what Mary said, basically both, how can this be? What we see is Zechariah questioning God's ability to bring it out. He's questioning the truthfulness of the message from Gabriel, because Gabriel's response is, hey, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I brought you this message. And you're saying, how is this going to happen? So Zechariah gets his little punishment, his little disciplinary action. And Mary says, how will this be? Because I'm a virgin. And what she is saying, okay, I'm going to have a son. Do I need to do something about this, Gabriel? That's basically what she's saying is, so what's next? So Zechariah says, how's that going to happen? No way. And Mary says, how is that going to happen? What's next? What do I need to do? And the difference is really kind of in where their mind goes. Mary stays present. Mary is in the moment. She's present with the angel and the message. Zechariah's mind, when he hears the message, goes to everything that could go wrong. It goes to all the history that says this can't be true. It goes all these other places. So Mary says, okay, what's the next step? And Zechariah's like all over the place. Like, no way, this can't be. I can think of 10 reasons why this can't happen. And that's a lesson for us that we did, that we looked at in the message yesterday, which you can get on www.journeyoflife.org. It'll be posted probably tomorrow, actually. But that's what I wanted to do my little FaceTime here today about, is just doing the next step is so important for our lives in every way. Just doing the next step, because we all confront different things that are difficult. Sometimes it's a difficulty in a relationship. Maybe you need to apologize. There's some bad blood between you and somebody. Maybe it's a difficult conversation, and we plan these things out ahead of time. And our mind, our mind is a great traveler. It goes back and forth in time and all over the world, even when we're just sitting right there. And so our mind goes all over the place when we plan these conversations, these difficult or potentially painful conversations. And we do ourselves a disservice when we do that. I'm not saying don't be prepared, right? I mean, I'm not saying that. But if you let your mind spin off, it can take you into places that were never going to happen. So the thing that Mary teaches us is to be present to the moment and just say, what's the next thing to do? What's the next thing to do? So it might be, if it's a relationship, the next thing to do might be to pick up the phone and call the person. It might be to write the letter. It might be to step into the person's office and say, there's something I need to talk to you about. But this goes further, this idea of what's the next thing I have to do right now, because a lot of life is overwhelming. It has this works well with difficult habits too, like exercise. It can be very difficult to get an exercise habit going, and especially if you're busy, you get tired, all this kind of stuff. And this happened to me Friday morning. Friday, I was at the Y, and I had forgotten my headphones, which for me is like horrible. It's just horrible to forget the headphones. And because I always listen to audiobooks and things. And so I almost didn't go in, but I thought to myself, normally I run for 30 minutes on the treadmill and I do some weights and stuff. And I almost thought to myself, forget it. I'm not going to do it. There's no way. And then I thought, you know what? I gotta lean into this moment. I have to turn toward it instead of away from it. And I'm going to go do like 10 minutes. I'll just go do 10 minutes on the treadmill, and then at least I kept my habit, right? And so I went and did it, but you know what happened? By the time I had the 10 minutes done, it wasn't so bad. And I did 10 more, and then I ended up, I actually ran my 30 minutes faster than I'd ever run them before. And then I did the rest. I did my weights and my planking and my stretching and everything. And it worked out pretty good. But there is no way that I could have made that decision to go in there and get started if I had tried to keep the whole workout in my head when I was really, really tired and I didn't have my headphones with me, so I wouldn't have anything to listen to. Too overwhelming. But I had to just think about what's that next little step. What's the next little step? And that's what my encouragement to you today is, as a kind of an extension of the message from yesterday that will be posted tomorrow, is obviously we need to sort of like step back sometimes and plan large things, but the large things we break down into little steps. And when you're feeling overwhelmed, what you need to do is narrow that focus down. Just narrow that focus down. Narrow it down smaller and smaller and smaller. Maybe the next thing you can only do some mornings is sit up in bed. Maybe you're laying in bed and it's just that kind of morning. And you can't imagine that going through the day. Don't imagine going through the day. That's where you're going wrong. If you're having that kind of a morning, don't imagine going through the day because you can't. It's overwhelming. What you need to do is narrow the focus down to just the next little step. What can you do? I can swing my feet off the edge of the bed and sit up. I could just sit up. Okay. Okay, good. I sat up. Okay. Next thing to do is stand. I'm gonna stand up and I'm just gonna get coffee and that's all I'm gonna do. And if I can't get any further than my coffee, that's okay too, but I'm gonna just get my coffee. All right, had my coffee. Okay, I'll take a shower. I'm gonna take a shower. I don't know if I'm gonna make it any further than the shower during the day, but I can decide just to take my shower. And it goes on like that, right? And so when you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not sure what to do and the whole thing seems just bigger than you, what you need to do is collapse that thing down and stay present to the moment. Don't try and keep that whole big thing in your head all the time. Just collapse it down and get present to the moment. Say, what's the next thing that I need to do and that I can do right now? Henry Ford said, nothing is particularly difficult if you break it down into small enough steps. And so that's just a truth about life. And then for people who are followers of Jesus Christ and believe the Holy Spirit is moving in and through the world all the time, we know that God doesn't give us the whole plan all at once. And if we try to like fit God's whole plan in our mind, our heads are going to explode or something, or we're just going to be like totally shattered and overwhelmed by the enormity of the thing. But if we just say, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? So that's what I want to say to you today. Think about what's the next thing. Just when you get overwhelmed, not the big thing, take it down. Take it down. Sometimes things are so big, you need to take it all the way down to breathing. Sometimes you need to just sit there and breathe for a moment. Meditation helps you with that. I'm not going to go off on meditation today. Some other day I'll talk about meditation because it's really awesome and cool and hard sometimes. But sometimes you need to squeeze that thing all the way down to just a breath. I can breathe. I breathe. I breathe. Okay. Then you know what that does? That also gives you a victory because you chose to do something. I'm going to sit here and breathe, and you did it. And even, I know that sounds like a stupid, that sounds really like, whoa. But you know, some of us have been in that situation where in some days, just sitting and breathing and not rolling over and giving up for the day, that alone is a victory. So, anyway, that's kind of where we went with Zechariah. His head goes everywhere. He's like, how's that possible? No way. Mary, she stays present to the moment and asks the angel, okay, so what do I need to do with this? What's the next step? So stay present. Stay present to the moment. Just think about what's the next thing you do right now. And if this is great for you, good. I'm glad it's helpful. I'm just glad to be able to do this and hope it helps somebody, anybody in the entire world. I mean, heck, it's the internet, right? That's awesome. It's totally awesome. Anybody in the world could be watching this. And I hope it's helpful. And listen, you have a great day. Be gracious to other people and be gracious to yourself. See ya.